So having discussed the minimax criteria in the previous video, and of course we have discussed some other theory also in the lecture videos prior to that. So we now solve some examples wherein we will be applying the minimax criteria as well as some of the earlier theory which we discussed. So the first example is when H1 is the true hypothesis, we receive R, which is M, which is a known number, plus N, where capital N is the noise random variable. And when H0 is the true hypothesis, we receive only N. So, and of course N is normal distributed, that is Gaussian distributed with zero mean and variance sigma square. So a similar problem we had, problem statement we had earlier, and from the earlier problem statement we know that the decision rule is this. So this was discussed in one of the previous examples in the video prior to the previous video. 2 sigma square natural log of eta plus 2m divided by 2m plus m square, I'm sorry, that is not 2m, it is m square by 2m, and this was the gamma, the threshold gamma, and this decision rule was derived earlier, so I will not be deriving it here again. Now the problem that we have to solve is A. We have to determine PF and PD, that is the probability of false alarm and the probability of detection, and B, we have to find the probability of error. What is the probability of error if P0 is 1 by 4, and C, we have to find probability of error if P0 is unknown. So P0 is not known. So what will be the probability of error when P0 is unknown? And of course, we are told that C00 is equal to C11 is equal to 0. That is no cost for correct decision. And C01 is equal to C10 is equal to 1. That means the cost for a wrong decision, be it a false alarm or a miss, the cost is 1. So this is the problem statement. In fact, this is what we have done earlier, as I said, so I will not go through it again, because we are told that N is Gaussian distributed and zero mean and variance sigma square, we can do it. So you can refer to the previous problem solved example videos to see how it is done. So let us first determine PF and PD. So clearly, probability of false alarm, as you know, is when you declare that H1 is the true hypothesis when actually H0 is the true hypothesis. So the probability of that happening is R has to be above, R has to be more than the threshold gamma when H0 was the true hypothesis. So for that to happen, the probability of that happening is this. That is the density function of R, that is the probability of R taking a value more than gamma when H0 is a true hypothesis. So we have to integrate the conditional density function of R when H0 is the true hypothesis from gamma to infinity. And we are told that the noise which gets added is Gaussian distributed of zero mean and variance sigma square. When H naught is the true hypothesis, what you are receiving is only noise. So you have here 1 by root of 2 pi sigma. It will be nothing but the Gaussian distribution e raised to minus r square by 2 sigma square dr. So you can see that this is a zero mean sigma square variance Gaussian distribution that we have here, and we have to integrate it from gamma to infinity. And what we do is we will substitute for r by sigma, we will substitute as x. So r by sigma we will write as x, dr becomes sigma dx. You put these substitutions here and this will turn out to be 1 by root of 2 pi integral. Instead of gamma to infinity, since r by sigma is equal to x and your variable of integration you have changed to x now by means of this substitution, you will have gamma by sigma to infinity e raised to minus x square by 2 dx. Sigma dx, this sigma and this sigma got cancelled. So this is what we have, and by definition we write this as equal to, this has to be integrated numerically. Once you know the value of gamma and sigma, you can perform this integration numerically, but standard result is that you can express this as q gamma by sigma, where q is the q function. Q function will be tabulated. You will get a table of Q functions if required. Of course, this can also be expressed in terms of the complementary error function, which we will not do. We will use the Q function. We will express such integrals in terms of the Q function. So Q of gamma by sigma is the probability of false alarm. So now we move on to the probability of detection. Detection happens when the hypothesis is H1, the true hypothesis is H1, and you declare it as H1. So that will be probability of R lying above gamma again when H1 is the true hypothesis. So to find out that probability, we have to integrate the conditional density function of R when H1 is the true hypothesis from gamma to infinity. So we are finding the probability of R lying above gamma, that is R taking on a value more than gamma when H1 is the true hypothesis. This will be 1 by root of 2 pi sigma. And recall that when H1 is the true hypothesis, what you receive is m plus n, where n is the noise random variable, 0 mean sigma square variance, and m is a known number. So the density function now becomes 1 by root of 2 pi sigma e raised to minus r minus m square by 2 sigma square dr. Now again we make a substitution, r minus m by sigma is equal to x, dr is equal to sigma dx. Make that substitution in the integration and you will end up getting 1 by root of 2 pi integral gamma minus m by sigma to infinity e raised to minus x square by 2 dx. And again, by definition of Q function, we can express this as a Q function, Q of gamma minus m by sigma. Q of gamma minus m by sigma. Of course, again, as I needless to say, we can also express this as a complementary error function, ERFC, but we will not be doing it. We will be using the Q function. So this is the probability of detection. So we have now with us the probability of false alarm, which was Q gamma by sigma, we found out just now, and probability of detection is Q gamma minus m by sigma. So that gives the answer to the first part of the question, the part A of the question. And these values can be found out from the computer or from the Q table Q table is available. Of course, using a table has become old-fashioned. You can find that out in a computer. Okay, now we move on to the second part. The second part of the question was, if you recall, we have to find the probability of error if P naught is equal to 1 by 4. So probability of error is, again, we had discussed this in the previous video, if I recall. Before discussing the minimax criterion, we had discussed this idea. So probability of error is given by the probability of H1 being the true hypothesis, probability of H1 being the true hypothesis multiplied by probability of a miss plus probability of H0 being the true hypothesis multiplied by probability of a false alarm. So this is the probability of error. So you miss the target, that is, you miss declaring H1 as the true hypothesis, and the probability of that multiplied by the probability of H1 being the true hypothesis. So you are basically averaging the two types of probability of errors that you can encounter. One is missing the target, the other one is sending out a false alarm, or one is missing to detect H1 as H1, and the other one is to miss H0 and declare it as H1. Now we have been told that P0 is 1 by 4, which means P1 is 3 by 4. P0 is 1 by 4, P1 is 3 by 4. There are only two possible hypotheses. And probability of miss we have to find out, but we have already found out what is the probability of detection. Probability of detection is Q of gamma minus m by sigma. So when the hypothesis is H1, you either detect it or you miss. Other than there is no a third possibility. So probability of miss will be 1 minus probability of detection. So you either detect the hypothesis as H1 or you miss it and detect it as H0. So there is no third possibility. So probability of miss will be 1 minus probability of detection. Probability of detection was found out to be this a short while ago. Q of gamma minus m by sigma plus P0 is 1 by 4, and probability of false alarm was this. So this is the probability of error. Now we can write this in a more elegant form. We can write this in a better way. Let's see how we can write it in a better way. So this is nothing but 1 minus, if you go by the definition of Q function, this is nothing but 1 minus 1 by root of 2 pi integral gamma minus m by sigma to infinity e power minus x square by 2 dx. So if you go by the definition, this is what it is. And if you closely observe this is nothing but an integration from gamma minus m by sigma to infinity of a Gaussian distributed probability density function of mean 0 and variance 1. So in place of sigma square you have 1, in place of mu you have 0. So you are essentially integrating a Gaussian distributed density function from gamma minus m by sigma to infinity. And that can be represented, if you look at it graphically, what we are doing is we have a zero mean unit variance Gaussian distribution. This is a freehand sketch. Zero mean unit variance Gaussian distribution. That is this part of it. And you are integrating it from gamma minus m by sigma. So I will choose gamma minus m by sigma here. You can choose it wherever you want. The theory remains the same. What we are about to discuss remains the same. So it is this area. It is this area that you have here. So you are integrating it from gamma minus m by sigma to infinity. Of course, this extends to infinity. So it is this area that we have here, and we are subtracting that from 1. We are subtracting that from 1. And the total area under any density function is 1. So the total area under this is 1. So 1 minus this area should give you this area, the one which I am shading now, isn't it? Because 1 is the total area under this. From that 1, you are subtracting this area. So that means the area under this, which means that the result of this should be this area. And the same, so basically what you have here is this area. And the same area is available if you integrate from m minus gamma by sigma to infinity. You are getting the same area as this. Which means that instead of writing it like this, we can write it as an area under this PDF from m minus gamma by sigma to infinity. That is nothing but 1 by root of 2 pi m minus gamma by sigma to infinity e power minus x square by 2 dx. So this is the same as this, and by definition of Q function we can write this as equal to Q m minus gamma by sigma. So that means this thing can be expressed as a single Q function. This can be expressed as a single Q function, which is Q m minus gamma by sigma. So this is the answer to the second part, that is part B of the question, which is to find out the probability of error. The probability of error is this, when P0 is 1 by 4. If P0 was 1 by 2, you would have had a 1 by 2 here and a 1 by 2 here. Anyhow, that's a more general thing. So for the given data, this is the answer. Now next, the third part. The third part is to find the probability of error if P0 is not known. So when P0 is not known, we have to find the probability of error, and we saw from minimax criteria that when the probability of occurrence of the hypothesis is not known, this is a case where you don't know P0, which means you don't know P1. So when the probability of occurrence of the hypothesis is not known, we set the target, we set the threshold in such a way that, or rather we use the minimax equation to arrive at the threshold. So what we do is we go back to the minimax equation, and in the present context, since C00 is equal to C11 is equal to 1, the minimax equation becomes CMPM is equal to CFPF. So I just repeat it again. In this context, in this problem, we have been told that C00 is equal to C11 is equal to 0. No cost for correct decision. C10 is equal to C01 is equal to 1. Cost is 1 for a wrong decision. And C10 is the cost for a false alarm, because you are declaring 1 instead of 0, that is H1 instead of H0. And C01 is the cost for a miss. You are declaring H0 when H1 is the true hypothesis, and the cost is the same. So CM is the same as C01 and CF is the same as C10. So this being the case, C00 is equal to C11 is equal to 0, the minimax equation is this. And since C10 is equal to C01 is equal to 1, CF and CM is 1 each. So this is the minimax equation. So if you solve this equation, from this equation you will be able to find out what is the threshold that you have to set, and that will give you the probability of error when P0 is not known. Because remember that when the probability of, if you go back to the minimax criteria discussion, you can recall that when the probability of occurrence of the hypothesis is not known, we set the threshold in such a way that the maximum risk is minimized. So PM is equal to PF. PM we have found out. We found out PM to be Q, the probability of miss to be Q m minus gamma by sigma, and the probability of false alarm was determined to be Q gamma by sigma. Now the two have to be same. That is what we have to make them equal to each other, and that will give us the threshold which you have to set for. That gives us the threshold which you have to set for the minimax criteria. We have to make them equal. So this will be equal clearly when gamma, the threshold, is equal to m by 2, which is a simple, by simple observation you can say that. When gamma is equal to m by 2, you can see that Q m by 2 by sigma is equal to Q m by 2 by sigma. So by simple observation you can say that this is the threshold gamma which you have to set. And when you set this as the threshold, you have Pm is equal to Pf is equal to Q gamma by 2 with gamma is equal to m by 2. Pm is equal to Pf is equal to Q gamma by 2 with gamma is equal to m by 2. And now you can say that the probability of error will be, what will be the probability of error now? The probability of error if P naught is not known. Find the probability of error if P naught is not known. The probability of error will be 1 minus P naught, which is the probability of a hypothesis H1, probability of, this is the probability of H1 being true. We are trying to find the probability of error. So probability of error, I will write P subscript E is P1, that is 1 minus P naught, Q gamma by 2, gamma has been set to m by 2, plus P naught Q gamma by 2. So P1, probability of hypothesis H1 being true, and this is the probability of a miss, plus probability of H naught being true, probability of a false alarm, and that will be equal to P naught into minus P naught into this plus P naught into this cancels, and you will get the result as Q gamma by 2 with gamma is equal to m by 2. This is the probability of error. So that completes the first problem. Okay, now we take the second example. So here what we are given, the data given is that PRH1, that is the density function of the received random variable when H1 is the true hypothesis, is equal to 1 by 2 for R 0 to 2 and 0 otherwise. So it is a uniform distribution from 0 to 2. That is what PRH1 is. And PRH0, that is the conditional density function of the received random variable when H0 is the true hypothesis, is given by e power minus R for R greater than 0. That's an exponential distribution. And for R less than 0, it is 0. So one thing is obvious, R is always positive. The two density functions given says that R is always positive, R is always greater than 0. Of course, greater than or equal to 0, one can say. So now, we will just plot this because a observation, a pictorial observation of this will be, a depiction of this will be quite helpful in arriving at the solution. Of course, the problem, what the problem asks us to find, I just gave you the two density functions, conditional density functions. The problem asks us to find first, to determine the decision regions. So we have to determine the decision regions, and the B part of the question is find minimum probability of error. So I will write P subscript E for probability of error. Find minimum probability of error if 1, P naught is equal to 1 by 2, 2, P naught is equal to 2 by 3, and 3, P naught is equal to 1 by 3. So for these three cases, we have to find out the minimum probability of error, and of course we have to determine the decision regions. So let's first draw the density functions, a freehand sketch of the two density functions. As I said, it will help us to visualize, and it will make it easier to arrive at the solution. So first I will plot PR H1. PR given H1 was said to be 1 by 2 for 0 to 2 and 0 otherwise. So this is PR H1, PR given H1, which is equal to 1 by 2. This is 1 by 2. And PR H0 has an exponential distribution e raised to minus r for r greater than 0. So when r is equal to 0, it will be 1. This is not to scale. This will be actually, this plus this should be 1. So this is half of this. It is not half. It's a freehand sketch. And e raised to minus 1 is less than 1 by 2. So just to draw it as realistically as possible, something like this. It will be an exponentially decaying function. E raised to minus r, that is our PR H0. So this is how the two density functions look like. Now we will try to attempt to answer, we'll make an attempt to answer part A of the question, which is to determine the decision regions. So what we do first is we will find out the likelihood ratio. Likelihood ratio, as you recall, is PR H1 by PR H0. Likelihood ratio is PR H1 by PR H0. And in our case, we can perform that division by looking at this. PR H1 is, see, from 0 to 2, from 0 to 2, PR H1 remains as 1 by 2, and PR H0 is e raised to minus r. So the division PR H1 by PR H0 will be 1 by 2 by e raised to minus r for r 0 to 2. This means that it is equal to e raised to r by 2 for r 0 to 2. Whereas for r greater than 2, we don't have to worry about r less than 2 because less than 0, because r is always positive. The density functions say that r is always positive. So for r greater than 2, PR H1 becomes 0 and PR H0 is e raised to minus r. So PR H1 by PR H0 will be 0 because PR H1 becomes 0 for r greater than 2. So it will be 0 for r greater than 2. This is the likelihood ratio lambda, capital lambda. Now what we do is we are essentially comparing this with eta. Eta, we know how to find out eta. If we are given the costs and the probability of occurrence of the events, we can find out eta. So that we will not bother about eta right now. There is an eta we know. So if it is greater than eta, you declare H1, otherwise you declare H0. So this is the way a decision is taken. Now we can go for the, so basically how this works is, just to add some theory here, how it works is, suppose you receive some value r. You have received some r. If that happens to be between 0 and 2, you substitute that r in this and compare it with the eta. If it is more than eta, you declare it as h1. Otherwise, you declare it as h0. Whereas if you receive something more than or more than 2, you will be forced to compare 0 with eta. And then you have to take a decision depending on what is our eta. We don't know what is eta. You compare 0 with eta and then take a decision. If eta 0 is less than eta, you take h0. Is more than eta, you take h1. But since 0 is fixed and eta is also fixed, this whenever r is greater than 2, your decision will be the same always. When r is greater than 2, your decision will be the same always. Whereas when r is between 0 to 2, it need not be the same always, because e raised to r by 2 may sometimes be more than eta, may sometimes be less than eta. So that way your decision will vary from h1 to h0. Anyhow, now because of the presence of the exponential here, it appears that a log likelihood ratio can make things easier. So taking the log likelihood ratio, I'll take the log likelihood ratio. So I'm going to take natural log of the likelihood ratio. So when I do that, I will get r. I take the likelihood ratio here, r minus natural log 2, because it is basically e raised to r into 1 by 2. So r, ln of e raised to r is r, and the natural log of 1 by 2 is minus natural log of 2. So that's what you see here, r minus natural log 2 and natural log eta. This is what happens when you take the log likelihood ratio and do a test. And this is for r 0 to 2. Whereas when you take the natural log of 0, your answer will be minus infinity, because e raised to minus infinity is 0. So natural log of 0 will be minus infinity. And this is how your test looks like now. Now this clearly says that, this of course clearly says that the second line clearly says that this is always a situation where minus infinity will be always less than ln eta, because minus infinity is the lowest possible. So minus infinity is always less than eta, which means that whenever r is greater than 2, you always declare h0 as the true hypothesis, because this will be always less than ln eta. So you can always declare h0 as the true hypothesis. And here we can do a small, this I will remove now, or let it be there. Let it be there. Now here we can manipulate it. We can have only r on the left hand side. We can write it like this: r you take it over here to the right hand side and you will get natural log 2 eta, because you will have ln eta plus ln 2, which is ln 2 eta, and this becomes gamma. This becomes gamma, the threshold. So you are comparing r with this and then taking a decision as to whether h1 or h0 is a true hypothesis whenever r is between 0 and 2. Otherwise, you are comparing minus infinity with ln eta and you are taking a decision which invariably always lets you say that h0 is the true hypothesis. So now, with the help of this, we can answer the first part of the question, which is determine the decision regions. So what it means is that on the r axis, the axis which shows the various possible values which r can take. So r varies from 0 to infinity. and gamma is not yet known because we are not told the values with which we can find eta. So let us just say that gamma is somewhere here. Let's say that gamma is somewhere here. That is ln 2 eta is a number which is between 1 and 2. It is just an assumption. If we want, we can choose it between 0 and 1. It doesn't matter. As long as we don't have the exact value of that, we can assume it to be lying somewhere here, which is not in no way going to affect our discussion. So whenever r is between 0 and 2, whenever r is between 0 and 2, and r is greater than gamma, whenever r is between 0 and 2 and r greater than gamma, that is this region. R is between 0 and 2 as well as it is greater than gamma. In this region, you are declaring H1 is the true hypothesis. When this R is greater than gamma and between 0 and 2, you are declaring H1 as the true hypothesis. And whenever R is between 0 and 2 and it is less than gamma, H0 is the true hypothesis. Whenever R is greater than 2, whenever R is greater than 2, you are declaring not hypothesis. So this is the decision region. So when R is between gamma and 2, you say H1. Between 0 and gamma, you say H0. Between R and infinity, of course, you say this is the way we can show the decision region. Answer the part of the question. Now the second part of the question is we have to find minimum probability for three different nodes. P0 equal to 1 by 2, P0 equal to, and P0 is 1 by 3. So let us begin with P0 is equal to, or rather, before we do that, let us write the expression for probability of error. Probability of error is equal to, so we will take the cost as 0 for correct decision and 1 each for the wrong decisions. So PE is equal to, we know the expression, probability of H0 being true, probability of false alarm, plus probability of H1 being true, probability of miss. And we can now write this as equal to P0, probability of false alarm. False alarm is when you declare H1 is the true hypothesis, when indeed H0 was the true hypothesis, when H0 was the true hypothesis. So to declare H1 as the true hypothesis, you have to be in the range gamma to 2. R has to be in the range gamma to 2. R has to be in the range gamma to 2 if you have to declare H1 as the true hypothesis. So false alarm is R for this range, then H0 is the hypothesis. When H0 is the true hypothesis, we are told that the density function of R is this, e raised to minus R. And it has to fall the range gamma to 2. R or gamma to H0 is the true hypothesis. R when H0 is the true hypothesis. And this integration will give you the probability of R lying in this region when H0 is the true hypothesis. Plus hypothesis being 1 and probability of miss. We can add, we say we miss. The miss here refers to, the miss here refers to a situation where you declare H0 as the true hypothesis when H1 was the true hypothesis. So for that to happen, you have to be in the range 0, because the miss we have to declare H1 hypothesis. H1 is the true hypothesis. Your density function is from 0 to 2. So unit function 0 to 2. That's what so when true hypothesis is uniform. So since 0. R can never be greater than 2 when H1 is the true hypothesis, the only way you can miss the hypothesis H1 is when R lies between 0 and gamma when H1 is the true hypothesis. Because when H1 is the true hypothesis, I say that again, R can never be greater than 2. So when H1 is a true hypothesis, you are going to get something between 0 and 2. And for you to miss H1, you have to be between 0 and gamma. That is when you declare it as H0. So this will be, probability of miss will be integral 0 to gamma PR H1, which is 1 by 2. And this result will be, one can easily integrate this, P naught e power P naught e power minus, if I write the result straight away, e power minus gamma minus e power minus 2 plus P1 gamma by 2. This is the probability of error. Now, we have been told that in case 1, before that let me write the gamma expression. Gamma is equal to natural log 2 eta. Gamma is now, because our gamma is well within 0 to 2. So when r is between 0 to 2, gamma is natural log 2 eta. And natural log 2. Now eta, we have been told that the costs are such that for wrong decision the cost is 1 each, and for the correct decision the cost is 0. And hence eta will be simply P naught by P1. So for case 1, when P naught is given to be 1 by 2, that was the statement of the problem. P naught was 1 by 2 for case 1. When P naught is 1 by 2, eta will be 0, because P naught is 1 by 2. P1 will also be 1 by 2. So ln 2, it will be, it's not 0. Eta will be 1 for that's what I'm trying to say. Eta will be 1 because P naught is 1 by 2, P1 is 1 by 2. Eta will be 1. So this will be ln 2. So gamma will be ln 2. And when you substitute it here with P naught as 1 by 2 and P1 as 1 by 2, you substitute it and you can see that the answer will be, so probability of error will be, I will not substitute it and evaluate, it's something you can do. So substitute for gamma as ln 2, P naught as 1 by 2, P1 as 1 by 2, again gamma as ln 2 here, and you will get the answer to be around 0.356. So this is the probability of error, minimum probability of error. And in second case, P naught is 2 by 3 and P1 is 1 by 3. So eta will be 2 and it will be, gamma will be ln 4. In the second case, it will be ln 4 because P naught is 2 by 3, P1 is 1 by 3. So eta will be 2 and gamma will be ln 4. And if you substitute it in this with P naught as equal to 2 by 3 and P1 as 1 by 3, you'll get the answer as 0.307 or something very close to that. And finally, for the third case, gamma will be equal to, so for the third case, what happens is P naught is 1 by 3 and P naught is 1 by 3, P1 is 2 by 3, so eta will be 1 by 2 and ln 2 into 1 by 2 will be 0 because you'll get ln 1 which will be 0, so gamma will be 0. And you can substitute gamma as 0 here and you can easily, gamma is 0 and of course P naught is 1 by 3, P1 is 2 by 3, and you will see that you will get something like 0.288 or something very close to it. So this number you verify, it is for you to do because you just have to substitute this gamma here with P naught and P1 as given in the statement of the problem. So this completes the solution of the second example. Now moving on to the third problem. So here the given data is like this. When H1 is the true hypothesis, we have received a random variable as sum of two random variables S and N. N represents the noise random variable and S is a random variable which will be characterized later. It will be provided in the data itself. And when H0 is the hypothesis, we receive only the noise. So S is absent. We have to determine the decision regions. So we have to determine the decision region. So as in the previous example, we have to show which are the decision regions for eta equal to 1 by 4, 1 and 2. So it is for three different values of eta. We have to show the decision regions, and we should also find out what is the probability of false alarm and probability of detection. And along with this, we are also told that S has a distribution like this. That is, when H1 is the true hypothesis, we get S plus N, in that the S random variable has a uniform distribution like this. It has a uniform distribution from -1 to +1, and as you know, the area under the density function has to be unity, which means that this has to be 1 by 2. The height has to be 1 by 2. So maybe I write 0.5. And the noise this time is not Gaussian distributed. The noise is also uniform distributed. The noise is also uniform distributed, and it is uniformly distributed from -2 to +2, which means that this has to be 0.25 or 1 by 4, because this is 4. So area has to be 1 under the density function. So with this information, let us proceed with the, first we have to determine what is PRH1, that is the conditional density function of the received random variable when H1 is the true hypothesis, and then we have to determine what is PRH0, so that we can find out the likelihood ratio, and then from that we can determine which are the decision regions, and so on and so forth. Proceed with answering the question. So PRH1, again, if you recall, in the one of the introductory classes, I think the second video, I think it was the second video or the first video, I don't remember, when we reviewed the probability and random variable theory, I said that when there are two independent random variables which are added, the resultant random variable, that is the sum of two independent random variables, the resultant random variable will have a probability density function which will be the convolution of those two random variables which you add. So for example, if z is equal to x plus y, then the density function of z will be the convolution of the density function of the random variables x and y when x and y are independent. Now here when H1 is the true hypothesis, you receive S plus N. Noise is always independent of this so-called signal which we are sending. It so happens that in this case the signal is also a random variable, but the signal and the noise are independent. Now that being the case, PRH1 will be a convolution of these two density functions. The density function of R given H1 is true will be a convolution of these two, and the density function of R given H0, here you receive only noise, so it will be just the same as this. So to get PRH1, we have to convolve these two. The convolution of these two is quite simple because you can do it by observation. They are both sort of square functions, rectangular functions, so to say. So we can easily convolve them. You can, I will not be going through the steps, it can be done through observation, it can also be done through steps, which can be quite lengthy here. But since we are supposed to be fairly well versed with convolution, we should be able to do it without going through the steps, because the functions involved are quite simple. So when we convolve this, the result will be, you can brush up your convolution either by going through the textbook or looking at some other videos on YouTube. So the convolution of these two will be, so what I am going to have here is PRH1, which is the convolution of these two. The convolution will be you can easily visualize that it's going to extend from plus 3 to minus 3, and from minus 1 to 1 it will be flat, and from 1 to 3 it will drop gradually in the form of a straight line. And the complementary happens here in the sense from minus 3 to minus 1 you will have a positive slope, and this is how it looks, the convolution of these two. So this is the density function of the received random variable when h1 is the true hypothesis. And of course this will be the area, I mean the height of this will be 1 by, or rather its height will be 1 by 4. Yeah, it will be 1 by 4 because 0.5 into 0.25, that will be 1 by 2 into 1 by 4, and then this is at 0 lag. So when you consider 0 lag, you will be having 0.25 into 0.5, that is 1 by 2 into 1 by 4, 1 by 8 multiplied by 2, and 1 by 8 multiplied by 2 is 1 by 4. So you get it as 1 by 4. The level here will be 1 by 4, and this will drop, this will drop. And again, through simple observations, you can write an equation for this part. It will be minus r by 8 plus 3 by 8. And this will be r by 8 plus 3 by 8. So from minus 3 to minus 1 it is r by 8 plus 3 by 8. From minus 1 to 1 it is 1 by 4. And 1 to 3 it is minus r by 8 by 3 by 8. This is PRH1. And PRH0, of course, PRH0 is just the same as the noise, as I said just now. So this is PRH0, and it will be 1 by 4. So both of this will be 0.25, minus 2 to plus 2. Now we can draw the likelihood ratio. Now we can draw the likelihood ratio. So the likelihood ratio will be PRH1 by PRH0. It is PRH1 by PRH0. For R minus 1 to plus 1, PRH1 by PRH0 is 1 because it's 1 by 4 by 1 by 4. So from minus 1 to 1, it is 1. This is 1. So minus 1 to 1, it is 1. And 1 to 2, if you see, it is this divided by 1 by 4. So this is 1 by 4, and from 1 to 2, it is minus r by 8 plus 3 by 8. So if you divide this by 1 by 4, you will get minus r by 2 plus 3 by 2, which will be a straight line with a negative slope. Minus r by 2 plus 3 by 2. And similarly, from minus 1 to minus 2, it is r by 8 plus 3 by 8 divided by 1 by 4. So you get a line, straight line with a positive slope. And from 2 to 3, and from 2 to 3 as well as minus 2 to minus 3, you are dividing this same function with 0. So you will have the likelihood ratio shoot to infinity. So within the range 2 to 3 or 2 to 3, you will have the likelihood ratio shoot to infinity. So I will represent it like this. infinity. And beyond 3, there is no relevance for R, because R, the maximum value R can take is 3 to 3, and the minimum value it can take is minus 3. So R ranges from 3 to minus 3, so we stop here. So this is the likelihood ratio. This is the likelihood ratio. Now coming to the first question, we have to find out we have to show the decision regions for 3 different values of eta. So I list them one by one. First is eta equal to 1 by 4. When eta is equal to 1 by 4, what is the decision region? So when eta is equal to 1 by 4, remember a decision is taken by comparing the likelihood ratio with eta. More than eta means you declare H1. Less than eta means you declare H0. So if you locate eta equal to 1 by 4, so again before that, let us note that when R is equal to 2, 3 by 2 minus 1 is 1 by 2. So this is 1 by 2. Similarly, when R is equal to minus 2, 3 by 2 minus 1, again it is 1 by 2. Now, when eta is 1 by 4, we can show 1 by 4 will be somewhere here. So when eta is 1 by 4, our decision making process is like comparing the likelihood ratio lambda with eta, and you can see that for the entire range of R, 3 to minus 3, which is the valid range for R, the likelihood ratio is always more than 1 by 4. So when you set eta as 1 by 4, your likelihood ratio is always more than 1 by 4, which means that when eta is 1 by 4, the entire region R minus 3 to 3 is for H1. You decide H1 is the true hypothesis whenever whatever value of R you receive. And you can receive only a value of R from 3 to minus 3. And you have set eta as 1 by 4. So this is the answer to the first part. So we will write here entire for H1. Entire for H1. For eta equal to 1 by 4, the entire region is for H1. And when eta equal to 1, something interesting happens. When eta is equal to 1, this is your eta, and you are comparing the likelihood ratio with 1. You can see that for 2 to 3 and minus 2 to minus 3, so I will write 2 to 3, R 2 to 3 and R minus 2 to minus 3, or either minus 3 to minus 2. That will be a better way of writing it. Minus 3 to minus 2 and 2 to 3. The likelihood ratio is infinity. So it is definitely more than 1. And in this region, you declare H1. This region, definitely you declare H1. And for minus 2 to minus 1 and 1 to 2, minus 2 to minus 1 and 1 to 2, you declare naturally H0, because the likelihood ratio is less than the threshold here. The threshold is 1. Now when you come to this region minus 1 to 1, the value of the likelihood ratio is equal to the value of the value of eta which you have set. So here you have to take a decision, and once you take a decision, you should stick to that always. So you are actually at a threshold here, exactly at the threshold. You are neither more than that or less than that. So you can take a decision that I am going to declare whenever eta is equal to 1, whenever the likelihood ratio is exactly equal to eta, I am going to declare H1. So this region is also for H1. You can also decide the other way. You can say whenever it is exactly, I will declare it as H0. But once you do it, you should stick to it. So we take here it has to be the region for H1. So when eta is equal to 1, you take a decision like this. So it is listed down here, 2 to 3 and minus 3 to minus 2, you declare H1, that is for R values, and minus 2 to minus 1 and 1 to 2 you declare H0, and similarly from minus 1 to 1 you declare H1. Now the third value of eta is 1 by, or rather 2, sorry. This is quite easy. So when you set the eta as 2, it is in such a way that only from 2 to 3 and minus 3 to minus 2 you have to declare as H1, because when eta is 2, the likelihood ratio capital lambda is more than that only in this range. Otherwise means for the range of valued R you declare H0, because from minus 2 to 2, since eta is 2, capital lambda is less than 2. So this is how we can bifurcate the decision region. This is how we can show the decision regions. Now we will answer the second part, that is to find out probability of detection and false alarm. So first, when eta is equal to 1 by 4, when eta is equal to 1 by 4, we saw that when eta is equal to 1 by 4, we were always declaring H1 as the true hypothesis. So probability of detection is 1, because you are always declaring H1 is the true hypothesis, which means that whenever H1 is the true hypothesis, you are saying H1 is the true hypothesis. You are always saying H1 is the true hypothesis. So you are always detecting the hypothesis H1. Similarly, probability of false alarm is 1 because of the same reason. Since you are always declaring H1 is the true hypothesis, you will be declaring H1 as the true hypothesis when H0 is also the true hypothesis. So probability of false alarm is also 1. So this is for eta equal to 1 by 4. Next, when eta is equal to 1, we have the probability of detection as equal to. So if you recall, when eta is equal to 1, we say H1 is the true hypothesis whenever R is in this region. I will write it down here. This is for H1. When eta is equal to 1, this was for H1. And this is also for H1. This is also for H1. And rest of it for H0. So detection happens when H1 is the true hypothesis and you end up declaring it as H1. So in our case, we note that minus 1 to 1, and in this you have to put the density function of the conditional density function of R when H1 is true. And for minus 1 to 1, that will be conditional density function of R when H1 is true. I had here, I wiped it off. You must be having it, or you can go back in the video and see that later. So that was a trapezoidal function, and for the range minus 1 to 1, it's 1 by 4 plus 2 to 3, right? 2 to 3. So integral minus 3 to minus 2, because minus 3 to minus 2 is also there, 2 to 3 is also there. So in this range, the function was minus R by 8 plus 3 by 8 plus, sorry, this was plus R by 8, 3 by 8 plus minus R by 8 plus 3 by 8 dr. So you can either calculate this, or again by observation you know that those were triangles. So you can calculate what is the area of that triangle, and the result will be 1 by 2. This will be 1 by 2 plus, so the result here will be, because you are going from -3 to -2, the area of that triangle, or you can evaluate this, or you can directly look at calculate the area of that triangle, because basically you are finding out the area under the density function. The area of that triangle will be, the height of the triangle is 1 by 8 and the base is 2. So the area will be 1 by 8. Height of the triangle is 1 by 8. Of that triangle from -3 to -2 is 1 by 8, and the base is 1 rather. It is -3 to -2, so the base is 1. So it will be 1 by 16. 1 by 16, because height is 1 by 8 and the base is -3 to -2, it is 1 unit. So 1 by 8, half the base into the height, so that will be 0.5 into 1 by 8, which will be 1 by 16. Similarly, this also, it's a similar triangle, only thing is flipped. So plus 1 by 16. So when you add it up, you will get 8 by 16 plus 1 by 16 plus 1 by 16, which will be 10 by 16, which is 5 by 8. This is the probability of detection when eta is equal to 1. And probability of false alarm when eta is equal to 1. So false alarm is when you declare H1 as the true hypothesis, when H0 was the true hypothesis. So you have to find out the, so this region is for H0. So you should, if you have to declare, sorry, this is the region for H1. If you have to declare H0 as the true, H1 as the true hypothesis, when H0 was the true hypothesis, that's a false alarm. You have to find out the probability of R lying in this region when H0 was the true hypothesis. So basically you have to integrate the conditional density function of R when H0 is the true hypothesis in the region -3 to -2, then -1 to 1, and again 2 to 3. Now the conditional density function of R when H0 is the true hypothesis is a uniform distribution from -2 to +2. So we need to worry only about the region -1 to 1, because it's not, when H0 is the true hypothesis, R will never be greater than 2 or less than -2. So probability of false alarm will be integral -1 to +1, -1 to +1 of the conditional density function of R when H0 is true, and in this range it is 1 by 4 dr, that will be 1 by 2. So this is the probability of false alarm when eta is equal to 1. And finally, when eta is equal to 2, so when eta is equal to 2, when eta is equal to 2, when eta is equal to 2, you declare H1 for only R2 to 3 and R -3 to -2. Otherwise, you are declaring H0. So you can show through similar procedure that probability of false alarm is 0, probability of detection is 1 by 8. This is left as an exercise for you. You can show it. So verify whether the result for eta is equal to 2 is the same. You can also verify the results for the other values of eta which I have discussed here. So that completes the discussion of 3 examples, and in the next video we will discuss some other criterion for taking a decision.